Thanks for joining us on our Midweek podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Hendricks, and I'm here with my good friend, Teak Hamilton.
Hi, Jerry.
Good morning, Teak. Oh, hey, Teak, you forgot something. You forgot your glasses.
Nice.
Tonight is... I had no idea what those were going to look like.
I'm going to go put these on the table over here real quick.
Those look every bit as good as I had hoped that they would. And when you come back, Teak... Oh, okay. You don't need those?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, Teak, tonight is Fall Festival.
Yes, it is.
In case you forgot, I brought a prop here, or a lot of prop, 290 pieces.
I don't think there's really 290 pieces in
prop,
there.
I know, because someone got into it.
For the record, it's not chocolate, so I did not get into it. I blame either Lisa or Kelsey.
I think you are correct. I think they may have conspired on that.
Probably.
Did you know last week someone recognized Kelsey because we mentioned her on our podcast a few times?
No, I didn't.
Yes, I thought that was pretty crazy. So,
cool.
Anyways, Kelsey's our producer and editor and ministry assistant and all that stuff.
All that stuff.
Anyway, I really wasn't planning on doing that, so I didn't know where I was going to go.
Are you going to the Fall Festival tonight?
No.
Is it too cold?
Well, when we started moving it to the Coliseum, by the time I leave here from finishing what I do,
It's almost over.
It's almost over, and the line is still all the way back. I mean, all I see when I get to that four-way stop is tail lights from people coming in. And I'm guessing they're coming to pick up the kids or something. I don't know.
Or take kids. Who knows?
So I don't even know the lay of the land once we move that. But
we have thousands and thousands of people there.
That's for sure. It was always chaotic for me to leave here and go and kind of walk into it because it's already dark and I didn't know where our booths were. Anyways, so no, I'm going to lead Bible study here tonight
in the warm
room. And hang out with my peeps.
All right. We'll have fun with that.
Okay, I will. It will be a lot of fun. Teak, this week we continue our series.
We're in Colossians, talking about transformed.
In fact, we are, and we're going to wrap it up this week in Colossians chapter 4. It's interesting the way it was laid out through lectionary that chapter 3 was overlooked. So I'm going to be talking about that some tonight, and then Sunday kind of fold that into what Paul's saying as he wraps up this letter.
Okay.
But one of the things that he's talking about, I wish, one of the phrases that I kind of live by is I always know the right thing to say after the right time to say it has passed.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot.
Well, that's why I do a midweek podcast, and we haven't gone back and made correction in a while. But one of the things I was thinking about as I was getting ready for Sunday is I don't think I've mentioned or reminded our folks as we've gone through this passage that we're talking about in terms of discipleship, which is what this series is about. We need to remember that these are new believers,
right?
And right. I've not said that even one time in our conversations.
Right. You did talk about how Paul didn't start this church, so he was new to them at least, or they were new to him, and he was new to them.
Right. And I guess my mind was wrapped around discipleship and implementing those things in our life that help us to grow in our relationship and grow in our faith. And we all start at different places, but at no point do I remember saying that or reminding us that this, we're really talking here in the text about new believers. And I know I've said that before in other passages, and I think it's a good thing to remember as we go through this.
Well, it's probably pretty safe that any book that is written and in the New Testament was to new believers, except for maybe like Revelation or something, but they were all fairly new to what this Christian life was.
Yeah, and anyway, so I sort of maybe missed that, but as we kind of wrap this up Sunday, Paul really does do a good job in finishing up his letter and saying some really good things and setting a course, I think, for what faith life could look like for them. It's interesting, too, how he kind of assembles his team in those last verses. I think it's verse 8 to the end of the chapter, verse 9 to the end of the chapter. He just kind of describes those people who are with him and a part of his ministry team. But I find that interesting. But he's really talking about, in chapters 3 and 4, kind of how we live our life, how we relate to others in the faith life experience that we have.
Is this the book? Sorry, I'm jumping ahead probably. Is this the letter where he mentions the letter to Laodicea also?
Yes.
That's fun.
Yeah. So, well,
sorry, I know that's jumping forward.
You may know more about that. I'm not that far yet. So why is that fun?
No, I just think it's fun because he mentions a letter that we don't have in Scripture, and so we know that, like, sometimes we think that maybe Paul's ministry was just to these select churches, but he was constantly writing and encouraging. Like, that was part of his calling. That was part of his life. That was his spiritual development, that he was helping others. We just don't have them all in Scripture.
Right. In going back and working through the introduction to Colossians, there were 3 cities that were close together that shared sort of the same economy. Colossae, Laodicea, and Hierapolis, I think is how you say it. And what's interesting is that Colossae really is no longer there, or it just kind of disappeared. But Laodicea and Hierapolis, they're still cities, or they remain cities, and Laodicea is the one that's most notable.
And those little towns would usually share those letters, right? Just pass them around because you wanted the other churches to hear the words of Paul. They didn't have Bibles like we do today.
Right. Fact check this, but I do believe that's what he's talking about, is making sure that those letters are shared.
Right, yeah. That's what he's doing. He's saying you and Laodicea flip and share the letters that I've written to each other. So they weren't meant for those specific settings, but there were still eternal truths that could help those different churches also, as they help us today.
Well, and proximity helped them to be dealing with some of the same cultural issues. Right. It was not largely a Jewish area, even though there were a lot of Jewish folk there, but it was mostly Greek and other Gentiles. So the influence would have been the same, or at least the way he was writing and things that he was highlighting for them. But it is neat how specific he gets. And I think you find that in the latter part of this book, because he gives a real, it's in his typical writing form. He gives that brief introduction, and then he goes into issues. But he spends a good amount of time kind of wrapping this letter up, giving us some idea of what his ministry at that point looked like.
The ends, the ends of his letters are peeks into what's going on in the extra setting, or the setting of, I guess, Paul's life and the church life, because you do meet new people and you get these glimpses. That's how, I think that's how we find out, like John Mark, that he and Paul become close later on, because he talks about, even after the split, that he comes back and he talks about how important he is to his ministry. And a lot of that comes to the end where we might skip over it as just, that's just names, but that gives us a peek into the life of Paul and into his ministry.
Yeah, it is interesting, and they did note in the brief reading I did on that latter part of that chapter that of the 6 people that he mentions, 3 of them were Jewish and 3 were Gentile.
That's cool.
And so a balanced ministry team, kind of like we do here.
I don't even want to go there. I don't know what we're talking about.
Neither do I. What do you mean you don't know what we're talking about?
I don't know. Some Laodicea.
I got some candy.
No, Lisa ate all the kind I like out of there. I mean, someone did.
We can revert back to that. But anyways, he talks about really just kind of looking at, or encouraging people to really look at their devotion to Christ, and then really just kind of through the nature and the way that he talks, sort of measuring that to see, or guide us really on how we might continue to develop that faith life without really getting into specific issues with how we treat certain segments of our world.
You said the word devotion, and I think sometimes we take that lightly. Like, we don't think about the idea of what devotion actually means.
Right.
And we don't think about it in reference to God, because we talk about devotionals, and we talk about, and those are just short little snippets where we read real quick and we're done. But that idea of devotion, and is he's trying to develop this faith and help the new church develop their faith, that idea of devotion probably meant a lot more intenseness.
I'm making some notes for Sunday here, but thanks for that tip.
Well, I don't know. You said it and it stuck in my mind.
Well, what I'd written down is that he's really encouraged them to measure their devotion, and so kind of where I'm starting is how do we go about measuring that devotion in our life? What are some things that might, help us kind of peek inside our own life, or look in the mirror, I guess, on our own life, and see some of those areas where we may need to grow or develop more. But and then as we wrap up this year, I mean, we're already next Sunday. Well, Sunday will be November,
right?
And so we're kind of quickly thinking about this looking backward on this year and what all it's brought for us. I think it's appropriate to do that in terms of our faith life also.
I think that's one of the things that we need to be consistent in doing. We talk about evaluating businesses and programs and ministries and things like that, right. But we need to consistently evaluate our own lives and where we are, like you said, in devotion.
This is and also in this text is the third verse that I feel like is an important verse for us to know. Okay. And it's interesting that there's really, of those three, there's all three of those in a previous time in my life. There are verses that I've memorized. Mm-hmm. But in this one, Colossians 4:7 or 4:5, I guess, it says, "Conduct yourself with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of the opportunity." And I think that's a good word for the church today, as well as it was for Paul talking to the Colossians. Let me double check that verse. Go ahead.
Just a little wisdom on social media would be great for most Christians, including myself.
It's verse 5, Colossians 4:5. "Conduct yourself with wisdom toward outsiders." And, we've seen a lot of stuff in media lately, social media world lately, that's highly critical of other high-profile Christians. Mm-hmm. And there's never a win in that.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything in that is a necessary correction. It's just someone's idea as opposed to another's idea.
One of the ones, one of the ones that's big out right now is Kanye West dropped a new gospel album, Christian album, however you want to say it. And what we should be excited about is that God changed his life, but it's caused bickering.
Right.
And you're like, what? This is a great opportunity. He's reaching a whole new area that you and I will never get to, and be able to minister to those people, and he's doing it. We should be saying, hey, we thank God for changing his life.
That is an interesting one. That wasn't the one that I was thinking
of. I know,
of.
but I decided to go nice and easy on that one.
Yeah, the other one would probably get us more follows.
Right. Yep. I'm going to stick with Kanye West.
I'm going to stick with Kanye West.
Not many times have I said that in my life, but I just did.
I did not even know that. And I'll be honest, I'm still a little bit angry about the whole Academy Awards thing. No, it wasn't an Academy Award. It was some music award.
Well, this time he's going to go out and he's going to say, hold on just a second, I'll let you finish, but Jesus is King. Because that's what he said, was Jesus is King. That's his album, I think. And so I'm excited about it. I mean, that's really cool. And you know me, I don't listen to music. I'm not really a big music person. But I'm excited about this. This is a sign of how God works in people's lives.
I'm glad you're all up in Conway. Kanye. Shout out to Leighton.
Hi, Leighton. So, yeah.
Well, but it is a reminder in all areas. I think, because of the nature of people today, I think sarcasm is expected. Mm-hmm. Cynicism is high. Yep. I don't know that my parents' generation I would classify them necessarily as sarcastic, but it seems like our whole world is sarcastic.
Yeah,
and I think you have to be careful with it.
Your parents' generation, even my parents' generation, there was sarcasm would have been seen as disrespectful.
Yeah,
and you didn't have as much of that. I mean, I would have gotten in big trouble for it when I was younger.
Yeah. They'd have taken your cell phone away from you.
Nope, didn't have those.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
They unplugged my phone from the wall that lit up neon colors that was attached to every other phone in the house.
Wow.
Kelsey, we'll tell you about those phones one day.
Yeah. It's interesting. It'll be a fun conversation. Maybe we'll have some coffee and talk about that.
I like it.
Anyway, good stuff for this Sunday. I hope that you'll be able to join us. It's going to be a fun way to wrap up this series and get ready for fall, Advent, Thanksgiving, the fun stuff that's right ahead of us.
So you can say Advent, but when I say it 3 months ago, I can't. But you can say it 1 month out? Okay, I see how this works.
You are correct. And don't mess with me or I'm going to unplug your phone.
I'm wearing my glasses on Sunday.
Yeah, bring your glasses, Teak, and we'll reflect on this conversation, I'm sure, at some point. But hope you have a great week. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
See you then.